Looks like the recording's already begun. All right. So excellent. So I'm glad y'all could make it. This is I hope this is going to be a helpful and useful conversation. I want this to be more of a discussion than just some dry presentation, me talking at you. So if you have any questions, please feel free to ask anytime. I do not mind being interrupted at all. I saw this in the news yesterday. It says that AI is making it harder for new grads, I guess college graduates, to find jobs. And already this year, over 10,000 jobs have been cut because of AI. And there's clearly more on the way. I find it interesting that the picture they used has people walking out with their boxes and everyone's clapping. Don't know what message they're trying to send, but anyhow. So then a few hours later, I saw this message. Don't blame AI for your college graduates unable to find a job. Less than 5% of companies even use AI these days, and most of that's just experimental. Instead, make sure your kids are, studying subjects that make them attractive to employers. Have them do some market research. They should have learned how to do that in college.
We can add this.
I'm sorry?
I'm sorry. Somehow I lost your slides. I'm trying to figure out which one do I press to press. I can see you, and now I can't see the slides. But there's something I press here to get back to the slides. Okay. Well, I don't want to hold you up here.
No problem. Yeah. Try the three dots. Click on the little three dots in the upper right-hand corner if you hover over it. So, and then I saw this. They have these little videos that come out. Nearly half of global employers, this is from World Economic Forum, half of employers plan to replace workers with AI. So, that just tells me that companies are always looking for an excuse to downsize. Then again, 70% of companies intend to hire staff with AI expertise. So they're going to replace people who don't know AI with people who do know AI. Well, okay, that is an important data point. And then, of course, you don't even have to look for it, and you find articles that argue with each other about what's going on. So it's just, who do you believe and who do you trust? About a month ago, I think, Microsoft Research published this report titled Measuring the Occupational Implications of Generative AI. Very just rolls off the tongue. So anyhow, and it basically did an analysis of how AI is affecting different occupations. And not necessarily how it's replacing those occupations, but how it's being used in those occupations, which gives us some insight as to, how much of those jobs are going to be replaced by AI. So this is the top 40 occupations and how they're being affected by AI. And interpreters and translators, 98% of their job is being affected by AI. And that makes a lot of sense because, AI knows every language in the world, and it can be trained to translate language in a reasonable way. But out of the top 40, only one of them has to do with software development, and it's web developers. And if you think about that, it kind of makes sense. Web developers use AI to do their UI design and layout and lots of other tedious tasks. But you can look at this. Management analysts or, management consultants, they're like 10 times as many of those being employed. I had no idea. I guess maybe I only hang out with software developers, but their job is being affected almost as much as web developers. I suppose they go around and make suggestions of how businesses can work better. So I guess an AI can go and analyze your business and suggest things that they can do better. So let's look at all these jobs and see what sort of things they have in common. What kind of things do you notice? I mean, so I see writing and speaking. Um, I see some paper pushers. Um, Number crunchers. Um, so these are the sorts of things that computers are good at, and they've been trained to get better at. And so these are the things that we should be concerned about. That this is the kind of work that AI is going to take over for us. The the tedious number crunching and analyzing and that sort of thing. So we need to make sure we understand how to use AI to assist us in that. So let's look at the other side. These are the 40 occupations that are least affected by AI. And you see what's at the bottom: dredge operators, bridge lock tenders, zero. Pile driver operators have no need for AI at all. They're just banging. Floor sanders and finishers, yeah. Rail track laying. Um, but also look at this, massage therapists, surgical assistants, tire builders, dishwashers. There's a lot of dishwashers. Um, Nursing assistants. That's the biggest group here. Nursing assistants. What do we have here? Maids and housekeepers. So, what are the sorts of things that are required by these kinds of jobs that AI is unable to do? And in looking at these, I see that most of them require at least some level of creativity or at least an ability to handle unexpected circumstances. Yeah, repetitive tasks, that's right. And right, they have to interact with a real human being. If it's, well, embalmers, I guess. But no, nursing assistants, phlebotomists, that's someone who takes your blood. Um, Prosthodontics, medical equipment preparers, um, firefighters. Yeah, yeah. All these people do have to interact with real humans. Although, if we go back, hello, we go back. Um, you got telemarketers, you got sales representatives, customer service reps. They interact with people too. So although I have heard of companies replacing their customer service reps with AI and then they go back because people don't like that. Um, so, with all this in mind, what do we do about this? AI seems to be eating the world. A lot of people are worried about the future, and there's lots of different opinions about what is the real source of the problem. So, let's take a deep breath and think about this for a minute. Um, First, let's let's explode some misinformation. All right, AI isn't necessarily replacing developer jobs, at least not yet. Okay, if you stay informed, you can make sure that you surf the wave rather than be drowned in the tsunami, if I can use a really awful metaphor. But through a lot of my career, most of my coworkers would come into the office, they do their work, and then they go home. and that was it. Basically they came in, it was like working in a coal mine. You come in, do your work, and they go home. And if that's what you want to do, then my suspicion is that you're going to have to choose a different career. Software development has become significantly more demanding and more competitive, especially over the past 5 or 10 years. If you think about it, the technologies we use has changed significantly. With the advent of cloud computing, companies have wholesale changed from desktop applications to web applications. Um, and if you haven't been able to make that transition, then there's just not much demand for you. And if you're not able to stay up on the latest technology, then the company doesn't need you. They can hire somebody cheaper who's been trained in or has learned about this new technology. So if you want to thrive in the technology industry, you're going to have to think more like a consultant than as a day laborer. Think of, how does a consultant have to operate every day? They've got to be constantly on top of technology. What's coming down the pipe? What new technologies are out there? What is going to solve the problems for my company? These are the things that I've got to be thinking about all the time. Okay, so with that in mind, let's think about what generative AI really is for a few minutes, okay? So, personally, I like to think of AI as a very confident and very patient intern who's really fast and has access to all kinds of information. So, using that metaphor, would you hand an intern 1,000 lines of code and ask them to explain it to you? Clearly not. I mean, you give them 5 or 10, maybe 50 lines to go look at, and then they'll come back with a much useful answer. AI is the same. If you give it a 5,000 line module and say, explain to me what this module does, it will give you an answer. And there is a greater than zero chance that it's right, but not a whole lot greater than zero. Um, and again, would you give some minimal specification to an intern and expect him to come up with a working, shippable solution? Of course not. You need to specify in excruciating detail. And if you've ever seen videos of these guys doing vibe coding, it's pretty much the same thing. They give it a specification, say, no, that's right, I need it this color. Oh, no, that's right, we need to add this. We need to make this change and that sort of thing. They're going back and forth for 30 minutes. With the AI, the thing is that the AI will just generate the code really quick. So at the lowest level, generative AI, or a large language model, uses what's called a vector database, and it associates similar words and phrases in a statistically significant way to one another. So the better the quality of the data used to train the vector database, the better results you're going to get when you query that database. A big deal for ChatGPT was that it used large databases, just huge piles of data and monster CPU power to create a general purpose generative AI tool that could answer questions on just about any topic. Now you can set up your own large language model on your own computer at home and train it with information that's meaningful to you. There are some companies who do this. They'll like train a large language model with all of their HR information so that if employees have a question, they can get specific answers without, constantly bothering the HR person. They can say, does my insurance cover this? And it will be able to go through and give you a good answer for that. And you don't necessarily want to have that out on Chat GPT. The bottom line is that a large language model can't answer a question that you haven't trained it to answer. And the big expensive ones like ChatGPT just have trained their models with gigantic piles of data. So they're able to answer more questions, more general questions. Okay, does that make sense? All right, so with all of that in mind, let's talk about what you really want to know. How do I keep AI from replacing me? If you want to stay relevant, you need to master the fundamental skills of creating software. Um, Now, I've divided it up into, you know, we got 5 groups here. You need to be able to read unfamiliar code. That's what you do most of your day at work anyway. And there are tools and techniques to help you become more skilled in reading code. Now, I know that AI is going to be generating code for you, and you can go and feed the code to the AI to read it, but you have to be able to know whether the code that the AI has generated is correct, or does it introduce new problems, or maybe even security problems. Um, you may have heard about this T app or website that so many women's personal information was exposed, um, and there's some indication that the application was vibe coded and just put out there quickly. But there was either way, there was no thought for security. The developers didn't give any mind to that at all. The database was just available on the web, clear text. It's not that it was hacked; it's that it was discovered, and and there was no security around the data at all. Um, I smell a lawsuit, but reading code is hard. That's true, especially that really ugly code that somebody else wrote. Um, I read a comment from someone a few years ago that they said, I had always hoped that AI would handle the mundane, uh, boring stuff, the tedious work, so that I would be able to go and have more time doing the creative things, drawing pictures and writing and making music and that sort of thing. And yeah, now the AI is doing the pictures and doing the writing and doing the music, and we're going through and verifying that it's correct. So it's kind of inverted. Um, so I mean, yeah, you can give the code to AI to read for you, but how do you know that AI has it right? You have to know how to read code so that you can understand what it does and what the implications are. This just takes experience, and you're right, Bob. That's what you've already been doing. We've been doing that for a long time in our careers. Um, there is I'm, I can't remember the name of the book, but I heard an interview some years ago about a guy who was explaining that tools are supposed to make us better at doing things. They're supposed to make us stronger. A hammer makes us better at attaching pieces of wood together. A screwdriver makes us better at attaching pieces of wood together. If I don't have a hammer or a screwdriver, there are other means that I can use to attach pieces of wood to each other. It's just that the hammer makes me better at doing it. A bicycle makes me better at getting around, getting to different places. It doesn't make me weaker. I'm still able to walk if I need to. It just takes longer. The bicycle makes me better. Um, the problem is that he was talking about our cell phone tend to make us weaker. I've got a cell phone, and I don't remember people's phone numbers anymore. I used to have 27 phone numbers in my mind that I could just call right away. I don't remember my parents' phone number. I can just put in their name, and my phone dials it for me automatically. And so and also a GPS on the phone. I used to pull out a map to figure out where I needed to go and be able to go there. Now I depend on the GPS far too often. I'm not as strong at driving as I used to be. I'm not as strong at remembering phone numbers as I used to be. My phone has made me weaker. And AI does the same thing. Frankly, our IDEs do the same thing. If you're doing software development and using an IDE and you're having it go and finish out what you're doing, the code completion and everything. I remember I went in to do a test one time, and I had the parameters reversed because I didn't know which part was the expects and which part um, was the actual, and and so I got it backwards because I'd forgotten what order that goes in, and that's crazy because I hadn't done it in a long time. I just had the the program go in and generate the test for me, and I'd go in and fill in the details. AI is doing the same thing. We're leaning on AI too hard to do things. We still need to keep these fundamental skills so that we can double check AI. And AI is generating a lot more crap a lot quicker. So we have to get a lot better at being able to do this. Okay. So not only that, you have to be able to recognize code that's poorly written. Okay. Um, and poorly designed. um, you have to be able to notice when the solution that the AI provides could lead to problems down the road. You have to be able to recognize code smells and architecture smells. If you don't know what bad code looks like, you can't fix it. So you have to be able to recognize when AI is doing. If you think about it, AI has most AIs have been trained on what is that? Ooh, how can I forget this? GitHub. Gee whiz. Train on GitHub. And I don't know if you've looked at the code in GitHub, but not all of it is really high quality. so so you do have to check on that code that it goes and generates. Again, AI is just going to give you the statistically best answer to the question that you ask, and it's going to do it with great confidence. So, I I remember there was one time I asked the AI to how do I solve this particular problem using this library, and it gave me some example code to do that, and it turned out that the function it told me to call didn't exist. So I said, this function doesn't exist in the library. Well, you are correct. That function doesn't exist in the library. Um, Here's the proper way to get the result. And it gave me the same call. So, yeah, that doesn't work. Is there a different version of this library that you're referring to? Oh, very good catch. You're right. That was in an earlier version of the library. It wasn't in an earlier version of the library. And it gives me the same function. I went back and forth with the AI trying to get this to work for over 15 minutes when all I had to do was bring up the Java docs, and I could have read through the documentation in less time and found a solution for what I need. So AI isn't always as helpful as you want it to be. It's getting better. It's getting a lot better, and it's getting better quickly. But yeah, follow the zero trust mindset when using AI. That is absolutely true. Yeah, just like if you've hired an intern to do some coding, you're going to double check what they do, even if they are very prolific and very good at what they do. They may not understand all the implications of what your system needs. AI is the same way. I did a little experiment a couple months ago. I ran this little 15-line function through 5 different AI tools and asked each one find problems with this code. None of them found all of the problems, but surprisingly, Grok gave me the best results. So, what does this tell us? If you're going to use um, AI to do code analysis, you want to use multiple AIs, because each one has its strengths and each one has its weaknesses. One thing I found interesting is I had ChatGPT go and generate this table for me, and it made a point. It had a little explanation at the bottom, and it made a point to say that notice that ChatGPT found more problems than Gemini did. So even the right, okay, GitHub Copilot has multiple models. So right, yeah, you can have GitHub Copilot use different models, and that's very helpful. And I'm just telling you, take advantage of that. Take advantage of that. It's because every one of them has different strengths and different weaknesses. Um, okay, so in addition to knowing how to read and understand code better than AI, you need to know refactoring, design patterns. You need to be able to clean up ugly code and make it better. Need to know what better looks like. Again, AI can do that, but you need to pit different models against each other, see who comes up with the better solution, and you have to know what that better solution would look like. You're going to need to make sure it doesn't introduce new problems or bugs or security issues. And to ensure this, you're going to need a comprehensive set of tests before you start the refactor. And of course, I'm sure you do this anyway. You'll have characterization tests in place, make sure that a section of code is safe to change. One time I had an AI go and generate a series of tests for an object that I didn't write, so it would satisfy SonarQube. The company required us to have a certain level of SonarQube acceptance. It was complaining that this data object, with all of its access methods, it was generated by Lombok, that it didn't have enough code coverage. And so we couldn't flag that as an exceptional case. So I thought I'd be clever and lazy and just have AI go and generate a bunch of unit tests for it. And during code review, my coworker pointed out that the tests I was trying to add here were absolutely useless and they didn't really test anything. So, clearly AI didn't catch that, but my coworker, who had more integrity and patience at the time, called me out on it. So yeah, we have to again, like Zenik says, we have to have a zero trust mindset with the code that AI generates. Finally, we're going to need to master the soft skills. Um, all AI does is blow smoke up your butt and tell you how amazing you are. As we all know, if you've ever had to call for customer support for some company and they have an AI responding to you, oh my gosh, we hate it. We hate it, hate it, hate it. And so AI simply doesn't do this sort of thing at all. You're going to need to know how to communicate effectively. You can't influence decisions unless you can form a concise, coherent thought. Think about it. You're selling all day in every interaction that you have with your boss. You want to make sure that your boss knows how critical you are to the success of the project. With your fellow developers, you're trying to get things done your way, which is, of course, the right way. With your users and your clients, you're wanting them to know that you have their interests in mind and that you have the best solution for them. So, in every relationship, every interaction, you want to be able to influence the decisions of the people that you talk to. And this is what developing communication skills is all about. AI can't do this. It's where you can really shine. So you need to exercise and develop your communication skills every day so you can stay relevant in the competitive software development market. It's not just about writing code, it's about communicating what you know with people. But that's not enough anymore. The fundamentals are assumed. You, as you grow in your career, you're expected to know something in some specialized domain. Um, just figure out what you're interested in and what you're wanting to learn about. These are some ideas: cybersecurity, DevOps, cloud computing, data engineering, machine learning, all these sorts of things. Um, and you also need to specialize in some industry so that you can have the jargon down and the way they work. Like I'm in Houston, so the energy industry is big as well as the healthcare industry. So you need to be able to work in those industries and understand those domains and how you can apply these technologies to effectively assist them in that domain. You need a niche, just like if you're building a business, you need a niche. Um, Wait, there's more. You need to be aware of the new technologies that are coming along. You may not need to be expert in them, but you need to be able to converse intelligently about them. If you've gone on an interview in the past few years, you know this. You need to be able to at least answer questions on the various technologies that are becoming popular. Be able to explain to the decision makers and the stakeholders in your company what these technologies are, how they might benefit your organization, or how they'd be a waste of time for us because they really don't apply to us. When management has questions about these topics, you want them to know that you know about them, that you can explain what they mean for your organization. ChatGPT can't. ChatGPT can give you a good general explanation, but it can't it can't say this is why it's useful and helpful for your company. Um, I wanted to show you real quick a couple of interesting tools that I use in my daily workflow. Um, I recommend that you learn about tools and how they can help you to do better work. So let's see here. I'm a Java developer, so I use IntelliJ, and it has a tool called Juny. Um, and it's effectively like like similar to Microsoft Copilot, and it will you can ask it questions. Um, okay, so a couple of months ago, I work on this project called approval tests, and we were working on it trying to clean some stuff up. We noticed that when it created a directory path, it would do the path and then a slash dot slash and then the rest of the path, and we found that to be really frustrating. And so we figured out, the functions that we need to call in Java to make sure that the path that we're looking for is created properly. And and we created this function that would go and get the canonical file plus the absolute path and put them together so that we made sure that it always created the path the right way. Um, and then we check to see where we're doing this kind of path creation. And it's in like 30 different places in the code throughout the project. And it's like, oh man, I don't want to go through. It's going to take an hour and a half to go through and make all those changes. I don't want to do it. And I said, hey, let's look at Juny. And it was new at the time. And I said, let's give it a try. So what we did is I just told it, replace all calls to get absolute path with this new function, file utils get resolve path. Now I couldn't just do a, a whatever, find and replace, because you see, I'm doing this file dot get absolute path instead of file utils get resolve path and passing it in. So it's kind of turning it inside out. So this is what I told it. What Juny does is it goes and creates a plan for you. I'm going to do this. I'm going to examine this method, see how it works. I'm going to search for all occurrences for this function in the code base. for each occurrence, except in the one that it's defined in, I'm going to make the necessary code changes. And these are the files that I found it in. 4 here, 3 there, 2 there, blah, 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 all this stuff. I'm going to go in and there's, the other files only have one. I'm going to run the tests to make sure that the changes don't break any existing functionality and make sure all the occurrences have been replaced. And then I'm going to submit those changes. And then it says, do you want me to do this? And I like the plan, then I say, okay, go ahead. And so I went ahead and ran this, and it took around 10 minutes to go through all the code. And it tells you, this is what I'm doing every time. I'm going to get the structure of this function. I'm going to open this file and see how it works and make sure I understand it. I'm going to search in this project and look for this function call. I'm going to get the structure of it. I'm going to edit this file. I'm going to make this change. I took one line out and I added one line in. I took one line out, added one line, and it goes through. And each one takes 10, 15 seconds. And it made all these changes to all these files, which is really cool. And then at the end, it gives me a little report. So I made all these changes to all these files, and I can go in and revert it if I want to. And then it gives me a little summary of everything it did. And if I don't like it, I can tell it to roll back. So we, of course, didn't trust it and went through and started looking at, okay, what the heck did it do? And so we would look and see, okay, it changed this get absolute path to file utils resolved, approved, okay. And then it went and took 2 lines and turned it into 1. All right, so clean up file utils, all right. And it just took the 1 line and divided it up into 2 because it had to call this function twice and it was too wordy. So that's kind of nice. It went and made it made it easier to read and that sort of thing. And then we noticed this thing here. Like this, it took these 2 lines and turned them into 1 line. Directory get absolute path. We inserted the file separated and we passed all that into new file. It turns out that the file constructor has a second parameter where it'll go and automatically stick that file separator in there for you, so we don't have to worry about it. Now, I don't know about you, I don't know every API for the file constructors, but Juny does, and it was able to figure that out and solve that problem for us. And so I was really impressed with what it can do. And again, it saved us easily an hour's worth of work going through making all those changes and testing all of them. And it did it in around 10 minutes, which still took some time, but holy cow, it solved the problem and it solved it better than I would have myself. I don't know. I found that to be really interesting and really helpful. You know, you can take code like this and you can submit it to can I copy this? This is the test all files in directory. Okay. I guess we have, oh, there we are. Nope, I guess we must have gotten rid of that and replaced it with something else. Anyhow, I was just gonna see if I could take this code and submit it to ChatGPT. But basically, you can take code like this and just submit it to ChatGPT and tell it, what do you find any problems in this code, and then submit it to Grok, and then submit it to Claude and all the others. these are some useful ways that you can use AI to help you with the work that you do. If you have other questions, if we have some time later, maybe I can show you some of the other stuff. So, okay. So ultimately, you need to have a plan for your career. Okay. You need to ask yourself, what is it do I want to accomplish in my career? What do I want to be known for? What sort of things do I want to learn? You know, only when you know what you want and how bad you want it are you going to be able to define where you want to go. You need to spend some time thinking about it. You need to spend some time put together a plan. What skills do I want to develop first? You know, how am I going to know when I've achieved mastery enough of this skill? What's the first step I need to take to get to that point? When am I going to take that first step? Once I'm finished with that, what's the next step that I need to take? How quickly do I need to make progress so I know that this is something I actually need to pursue? How much time do I have to devote to it? So now I can set reasonable expectations for how I can get to my goals. Um, and so, with all of this in place, you can make sure that the value that you provide to your employer is higher than the value of any AI that they might be considering. And that the value that you provide with AI tools makes you that much more valuable. Um, and keep this in mind, you're not paid what you're worth. You're paid for your perceived value. It's how much they think you're worth. All right. And you're not paid for perceived value until you prove that value. So, how do you do that? Well, let me tell you about the worst developer I ever hired. He was a smart guy. He interviewed well, very well spoken. But after he joined, he was he didn't do anything. He took credit for stuff, but he didn't do anything. Um, One thing he did do is at the weekly status meetings, he would prepare a printed report to give to the managers to let them know all the things that our group was working on. And he didn't explicitly say it, but it was sort of implied that most of it was his idea and him doing the work. And the rest of us would just kind of roll our eyes as he handed out this stupid report, and the managers would ooh and ah over it, and we would roll our eyes again. And ultimately, a few months later, he finally moved on and found a company that would pay him more, and I was tremendously relieved. Managers came to me and said, "How could you let him go? That guy was amazing. He did incredible work." So, no, he didn't do any work. He took credit for work, but he didn't do any work. But but he gave us these terrific reports that were really helpful. Like, well, yeah. I said, you never gave us those reports. That's really valuable. Okay, so I learned if if I my manager cares about his career. He doesn't know anything about my career. The only one who cares about my career is me and maybe my mom. So what I need to do is make sure that my manager knows how important I am and how valuable I am. So the way I do that is I send a weekly reminder to my manager. This is the stuff that I worked on this week. These are the things that I did. These are the things that I plan on working on next week. And so I can let my manager know that I'm knocking it out of the park every week. So we have a question here. Is architecture and system designer mindset more crucial in the AI era? Feel like we can be like manager of multiple AI agents, interns to do certain tasks, and we make the important the decision to accept their output or not. Yes, yes, absolutely. You need to become the manager of an AI. Just like if your company is outsourcing a bunch of a project, somebody is going to be managing the the work that is outsourced. So you make sure that the outsourcers know what they need to do and that the quality of the work that they do is up to snuff. So you can kind of think of AI as an outsourcer in that way, that you've got to go and double check on their work and make sure they know what to do. That being said, you need to know how to do it. You need to know how to recognize quality work. You need to know whether to accept something and why to accept something from the AI. So again, for those of us who are more senior in our careers, we can make that transition easily. But this mundane work that the new developers need to have mastered is generally being done. This is how they used to cut their teeth in my day, way back when I'd walk to school uphill both ways. Um, in the good old days, yeah, the new developers would do the mundane stuff so they could figure out how to do things and they would learn things. Now we're farming that out to AI, so there's no quick entry level for new developers. So new developers are going to need to take a little extra effort. They're going to need to learn the fundamentals. They're going to need to have all of that down, and they're going to need to be able to read unfamiliar code. They're going to need to have contributed to some open source project or some other project. A company is going to want somebody with experience, even as an entry level developer. And that's just the painful truth. Um, so that being said, I put together a bunch of helpful resources for you here. You can either use a QR code, or I'll stick the link in the chat here. It's just a little PDF file with links and information for people to listen to, where to get your news, tools that you can basically, one is a sort of comprehensive list of all the different AI tools that are out there, so you can learn about that. There's some training links, podcasts you might listen to, that sort of thing. So there's a lot of noise out there, and this I've just curated this down to have at least some of the useful stuff that you can use. Um, so all that being said, I want to leave you with this final thought. AI is powerful, but it's no match for a software developer who can think, lead, and communicate with confidence. So you need to, well, you need to be that developer. You need to understand the fundamentals. You need to understand, at least in depth, one area of technology, and you need to understand the domain for the company that you're working for, their business domain, so you can make sure that you're creating value for the company rather than just them telling you, write a program that does this, and then you go and write a program that does this. That's what they can tell AI to do. What they need you to do is to look for opportunities in the company for how I can add value to this application or add value with a new application. It's just that's really what it takes. So I want to make sure that this is useful to you. I'm hoping that this answered most of the questions. I tried to cover most of the questions that people asked for when they signed up. Does anyone have any other questions or concerns? You can either put it in the chat or you can ask. I will say that I know some people might have questions for your specific situation, and I'm happy to discuss it with you. So, as a bonus for being here, I want to offer you a chance to go deep. We'll We can discuss your goals, put together a specific plan to help you move forward and reach your goals. This is a link to my calendar. We can schedule a time to talk. I'm only going to be available for a week or so, so go ahead and pick a time, and I'm happy to help you solve your problems. That's why I'm doing this, because I was telling Bob before we started that he has a daughter who's in college and trying to figure out if she should study computer science, and I have a niece who's got the same problem, and so I thought I would put together this to help people who are in that kind of a situation. These are the things you need to think about. I know that there's a lot of layoffs going on, a lot of concerns, and so I want to answer questions for people, and to help you keep things in perspective. Yeah, there's lots of layoffs. Yeah, there's lots of changes in the industry. There's always been changes in the industry. Um, the the web revolution, the internet revolution, when that came, my gosh, everybody had to retrain on how to learn HTML and how to do, well, at the time it was Perl, but how to do some kind of web applications and that sort of thing. And then the cloud came along, and we had to learn about how to support cloud technology. And now we've got AI coming along. So this is just the latest revolution. This is probably a more fundamental revolution, but it's still something that we can stay on top of, that we can learn about, and we can make ourselves more valuable by using it as a tool and being careful not to let it weaken us, as a lot of tools do.
Hi,
So,
Mr. Scott.
yes, sir.
I really enjoyed this session and really appreciate the insight you provided. I just have a question. So, my company has started to adopt AI at the beginning of this year,
Excellent.
um, and I have been pretty active on that field. Uh, I can see AI is developing rapidly. Like every month, there's some huge progress happening. Like the just a couple days ago, ChatGPT, what was that called? The five model 5
Right.
just came out. So my question here is, right? Um, I know the AI now at the current stage is more like a junior developer, but my concern question is like, what if they got enough, like they better their algorithm and that they got more of this senior developers input trained by that, then they also keep on refining the model at this rapid fashion with a multi-trillion-dollar investment with the whole nation is behind it. Uh, don't you think next year this time AI will just be incredibly even good, like maybe already will be reach senior developer level, and all we need to do is just give we need to have senior level of man side to give them the input, to give AI the input to give us the output that is matching with that standard. So I just have a just it's like a rat race, catch up game, never able to catch up, and things just changing so quickly. Even though now I'm kind of trying to play catch up, and learn AI and use AI. Just
Right.
feel kind of frustrated by how fast it's evolving, and I don't know. I just feel like maybe there will be a totally different mindset, and the job description will be different. As as I said, maybe they will need less developer, more like some architecture or designer who can actually orchestrate AI to do the work of a multiple junior and senior level developer can do. That's
Right.
just yeah. I don't know if you have any inside thoughts on that. Yeah, thank you.
Well, I will say if you're looking for someone to read the tea leaves, I put a link to this guy in my resources document. This guy's name is Ethan Mollick. He is one of the best thought leaders in the AI domain. And he actually last week he did a document. Well, I think it was yesterday. He put out an article on ChatGPT 5 and what the implications are of that. He puts out every quarter. These are the best AI tools available. So he's a really good guy to follow. But last week he put out this article on what he calls the bitter lesson versus the garbage can. And what he talks about in this document is that um, I guess the evolution of computers' abilities to play chess, okay, over the years. So in 1980, it was at 1500 level, and it basically you'd program the computers, and then finally Deep Blue in whatever that was, 2000, yeah, yeah, 2720 in 1997. So Deep Blue was able to defeat Kasparov, um, and that was just amazing. But the only way it was able to do that is that Deep Blue was programmed with hundreds of thousands of chess board situations, layouts, and what the next move should be in order to leave you in a better position. And so it was able to access this database more quickly than Kasparov was able to do in his brain. And that's the way that it beat the chess grandmaster. But the thing is that I went to a talk some years ago about a Google researcher was talking about how they taught their Google to play. I think it was checkers or some relatively simple game. They basically gave it the rules of the game and told it to start playing and figure out how to win. This is what a winning situation looks like, and they taught it how to play the game. And then they went to lunch, and when they came back, they saw it coming up with all kinds of really around the bend and creative ways to play the game that they'd never seen before. And so that's what they basically pointed this engine at chess, and it very quickly picked up the ability to play chess and beat the grandmasters and beat Deep Blue and beat any other game. And now the chess playing computers have figured out ways to play chess that humans never did. So the process that we followed to get the solution for Deep Blue to work is not the process that AI followed in order to figure out how to beat Deep Blue. And what the problem, the solution, or the problems that got us here won't be solved by the solutions we already have, something like that. But anyhow, so the AIs are figuring out solutions to problems. If you give it the ultimate solution that you want to get to, AI can figure out a way to get there. And so we may not need to follow the process. So that's what he's proposing here in this article. And the way he ends it is that we're about to find out which kind of problem organizations really are: chess games that yield to computational scale, or something fundamentally messier. Companies are betting on either answer, and they're already making their moves, and we'll soon get to learn what game we're actually playing. So basically, based on what he's saying here, it could be that what we do is give the AI, this is the what we ultimately want to end up with, and we tell it to do so, and it will get there in a way that is ugly, but it gets the job done, and it gets the job done quickly. So, um, and that may be good enough, but I suspect that we're going to have problems like the T app, where security is going to be compromised because AI, hackers are going to start using AI to hack into systems. They're going to be more sophisticated. So AI is going to have to be more sophisticated at protecting against that sort of thing. So yeah, I don't think that this is settled or will be settled for at least from the people that I follow, at least another 10 years. It's going to be, the AI tools just aren't there, and they seem to be reaching something of a plateau with how they can solve problems. So, I mean, if you're really concerned, we can go back to seeing what jobs are not going to be affected by AI. You can study to be a nursing assistant or a phlebotomist, but I still think I hold out hope, faith that the industry is going to still need people to do the software development, and we're still going to need to know the fundamental skills and the technologies that will get us to the next level, because AI, again, only returns what it's been trained with. It doesn't come up with new creative solutions. AI would never have come up with Docker. AI would never have come up with the cloud. So those kinds of solutions will only be discovered by leading edge software developers who are creative and skilled. Does that help?
Yes, thank you. Yeah.
Okay. Well, if there aren't any other questions, I won't take up any more of your time. I really appreciate you coming. Hope you found this helpful, and have a great weekend. And I'll look forward to talking to you again soon. Thank you much, guys.